I'm Julie Deane, the founder and at the moment now grand title of CEO of the Cambridge Satchel Company. I started the company, now it's about 6.5 years ago, with my mum, Frida, and it was started not for any particular reason other than the best reason ever, which is I really needed to find a way of making school fees for my daughter. So things weren't brilliant at the school that she was at. You know, it wasn't a bad school, it's just some years are better than others, and she was in a really bad one. And I promised her that I would find a way to put her in a place where she'd feel super happy and super safe, and she could become the person that I see now she is. And I'm so proud of her. So I know it was exactly the right thing to do. But at the time, I had £600 that I set aside for my grand plan, and I have 2 children, so I couldn't do it for one and not the other. And so you're looking at £24,000 a year for 2 children, and that's after tax. And so whatever job you have, you've got to pay your tax, you've got to pay other things, and then find £24,000 to pay school fees for 2 children. So from £600, that's what Google would qualify as a moonshot. You know, one of these projects that you never ever think you can actually do, but you hope that by trying to aim that high, you find something along the way that makes it worthwhile. And so this was my moonshot. I didn't know exactly how I was going to do it, so being a geeky person, I went to the kitchen computer, straight onto Excel, and made a list of 10 things, 10's a manageable number, 10 things that I thought I could do to make the school fees. And then in the columns across, I did all the things like how much money do you need to start the enterprise, how soon afterwards would money start coming out to actually pay the school fees, what would happen if it did get big, was it scalable, would it need more than just me, what happened if I had a heart attack because I was working too hard, would it mean that the whole thing would fail, or could other people carry it on, and they wouldn't have a mother, but at least they'd been in a good school. So all of those sort of kinds of things. And there were a couple of things that came down, but satchels was on the list because I was really fed up of the way that people have things now, school bags. They're just not made to last, or they have something like High School Musical on them, which is in, then it's out. Or it's a really poor quality zip and then it fails, or you can't keep it looking clean because I want everything to sort of last. And so I had a school satchel, and I thought, well, maybe I could sort of sell it to them under the Harry Potter Hermione sort of, they would have had school satchels. With that uniform, they would have had school satchels. And they were at the point of really wanting one. And when I came to look for school satchels, there was nobody selling them. I know now there's satchels everywhere, but at that time there was nobody selling them. And so that idea had sort of been planted, and when it came time to do my list of 10 things, it was sort of up there, and that was the one I went with. I'm really glad I did. So we sell in over 100 markets, and we sell to some incredible stores, you know, Lane Crawford out in Asia. We've been selling in Selfridges, we sell at Harrods, Harvey Nichols, J. Crew. I mean, just incredible. The best jobs you could ever hope to be associated with. And we've worked with the real A-list of designers. You know, the very first ones were Comme des Garçons, because they had emailed me in the kitchen and said that they liked the brand. And I remember my mum sort of saying, I didn't realise we had a brand. We sell satchels, and that's kind of the philosophy we've always had. You can't really go out to create a brand. We're just lucky enough that we have such a committed following that it constitutes more of a community, I think, than a brand. It was always a non-negotiable for Cambridge Satchel that all of our products were made in the UK. You know, a satchel is such a British bag. To just go and have it made in another part of the world because it's cheaper just didn't seem right. But so all of our products are made in the UK, and we actually have workshops in Leicester in the Midlands where there are real skills in Northampton, that area too, you know, the whole footwear and sewing and making garments and accessories and footwear. That's where those skills were. And it is a case of that's where those skills were, because when we started our workshops up, all of the most experienced, the most skilled people that we had were within 5 years of retirement age. And so if this had come along 5 years later, where would we have found those skills? You know, and so we're able to have those people pass their skills on now and have apprentice schemes, and we do the apprenticeships, and we're involved with the Queen Elizabeth Scholarship Trust, and so it's this whole community that really values the craftsmanship and the skills, because I always say to my children, you know, you have your money, but it's like voting for something. You know, you spend it in the places that you want to support, and it goes through everything. So in my village of Great Shelford, which is a really small village, but we have a little railway station, and they have these touch screen machines outside on each platform. We've got a platform, you know, into Cambridge and into London. That's kind of it. And there's a little ticket office at the side, and the most amazing woman, Angela, works in the ticket office, and she puts books in there, she puts sweets in there, she makes such a huge effort. But if everybody uses the touchscreen machines outside, then she won't have a job anymore. And so, you know, just doing things that make an effort to think, do I want to support something that is so charming and so British, and that little ticket office, then just use the ticket office. You know, don't always go for just efficiency, or you'll just be left with a completely charmless way of life where everybody's in a rush all the time and you only have the most efficient way of doing everything. And it's the same when you spend your money. You know, you can't think, oh, it doesn't matter, because it does matter. And if you're not supporting places, they will go out of business. And it's the same for British manufacturing, it's the same for craftsmanship, and it's the same for people like Angela in the ticket office. And so I think people just need to just take a step back and think about the way they're doing things and the way they're spending their money. We're incredibly lucky now with the internet and social media, and so it's a business's responsibility to tell their own story, you know, and for us to do a better job of showing the people that work in the workshop in Leicester, of showing the inside, the workmanship and the craftsmanship that go into every bag. It's our responsibility to not exploit people and think that just by saying it's made in Britain means you make it hugely expensive because people will be willing to pay the extra. You know, there are just huge degrees of honesty right the way through. And through social media then, just keep speaking to people so that the places that are creating a bit of a smoke and mirrors image out there of, oh yes, well we do 80% somewhere else and then we just put a tag on it over here, so that should mean that we say we're made in Britain. People will see through that as long as everybody is trying to just say who they are and put enough out there for people to make a good decision. There was a really emotional moment when my mum and I realised that we were going to be able to get them into the school, and we took them to John Lewis for their school uniforms. And they came out in their school uniforms, and my mum and I just howled our eyes out downstairs in John Lewis in Cambridge. Nobody had any idea of the amount of effort that it had taken to get to that point, you know, and that was a huge moment for us, you know, a huge moment. The first celebrity was that moment was an enormous moment when my mum and I were out and we were watching a sort of school sports match that was, you really didn't need to be watching it all the time. So I was looking on my phone to see if we'd had any orders on the website that I'd made myself, and it was a bit sort of shabby, but it did seem to work. And I could see on the list it said Sophie Ellis-Bextor, and I was looking at it and I was showing my mum. And I said, I'm going to email and find out if it is the Sophie Ellis-Bextor. And I emailed her, and she's so lovely. She came back and she said, I'm Sophie Ellis-Bextor, the singer. You know, as if there's loads of Sophie Ellis-Bextors, you know, all over. And I mean, that was incredible to me that she'd found this homemade website and managed to go through the order process, and it had sort of worked out. And then after that, you know, Fern Cotton, to see her in a photograph with one of our bags. And then just recently, we've had Taylor Swift, and she's worn the bag, this sort of oxblood push lock that we weren't even making anymore. She wore it 6 times in 2 weeks. And then she uploaded onto her Instagram feed a picture of her dancing with this bag. And I thought, oh no, that was a bad decision. I stopped making that bag. We better make some more really, really quickly. And so get it back on the website. So there is always a bit of a scramble. Alexa Chung, when she wore the 11-inch navy, that was the same thing. You know, suddenly, okay, navy, stop using the navy leather for anything else. I think we're going to need it for the 11-inch navies. But those moments are indescribable, you know, because it's just such a seal of approval, because those people could have any bag they wanted, you know, and the fact that they've chosen to wear a bag from Cambridge Satchel, it just means the world to us. It's really important to have things like the fashion revolution and to draw attention to what can happen if we always go cheaper, 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 and force people into the situation where they're no longer treating people properly, you know, and they're no longer applying the kinds of safety measures that they'd want if their children were working in places, you know, not their children like 10-year-old children, but if their children, they're still your children when they're 20, when they're 30, you know, and it's shocking to hear of some of these factories and the standards that they think are okay to be applied, and it's really important to just make a stand and think, I'm absolutely not buying from places that would manufacture anything in factories like that, or in places where they treat people that way. And I'm just going to make a stand, and maybe it means I have a few less things, but I want to be proud of the things I wear, and I want to be proud of the things I carry. And if they are given enough choice and enough creative choice and enough affordable choice where they can be proud of those decisions they're making and those things that they're buying, then I think everybody wins, and it just sends a really clear message that it's not acceptable to think that you should pay £3 for something when it's at the cost of somebody's life. It's just not right.